All right. So, today we'll continue with this problem of counting, right? So you have the questions you're given. You have some set which is represented in some way, and you want to count the size of the set, right? So we saw that many problems which where you can many decision problems that you've seen, like satisfiability, matching, and so on. You can ask the corresponding counting problems, which basically tries to which tells you, say for instance, you take satisfiability. Instead of asking whether a formula is satisfiable, you start asking the question of how many satisfying assignments are there, right? So instead of asking whether there is a perfect matching in the graph, you try to ask how many perfect matchings are there, right? Similarly, and so in particular, today we will look at this problem called sharp DNF, right? The counting the number of satisfying assignments of a DNF formula, right? A DNF formula is a formula which is a disjunction of terms where each term is a conjunction of literals. Okay, and this satisfiability of a DNF formula is known to be very easy. It's very efficient, because all you have to check is that uh, at least one of the terms in the DNF is satisfiable, and a term in the DNF is satisfiable precisely when it does not contain a literal and its negation. Right? So you just go over each term and check whether at least one of the terms contains only a literal and not a literal. I mean, it contains only. You just check whether a literal and its complement is not present in it. Right? If you find at least one such term, then you know it is satisfiable. But the counting version, even though the decision version is very efficient, there is a very efficient algorithm. The counting version is known to be very hard. Right? It is known to be in the class sharp P, and it's also complete in the sense that it's unlikely to have a polynomial time algorithm. Okay? What we will see is an algorithm that is uh, it will not give you the exact count, but it will give you a good approximation of the count. Okay, and the idea of this algorithm, that which we are going to see in the next few lectures, maybe next couple of weeks or so, is this idea what is known as the Monte Carlo method. So what is known as the Monte Carlo method. What is the Monte Carlo method? You have say a universe, right? U, and there is a set S which is subset of this universe. Okay, and you want to find the size of the set. Find the size of the set S, right? The cardinality of the set. This is the problem that the basic problem that we are interested in, right? And the idea, the Monte Carlo method, is the following, right? So the Monte Carlo method is that you are going to somehow sample, okay, and estimate the size of U. What do you mean? What how does that work? So the idea is that you somehow try to define a distribution, a probability distribution over the set U, and you sample according to this distribution. Correct? So you try to define this distribution over the universe, and you try to sample according to this distribution, right? And you look at the number of samples in S. Okay. So the point to note here is that S is basically implicitly defined, right? For instance, in the case of DNF counting, S is the number of satisfying assignments, and it's implicitly defined, and you can there is an efficient membership checking in S, for S, right? What does that mean? It means that you can, given an element, right? So given X in U, you can check if X is an element of S. Okay, so this is you assume that such a thing is true, correct? And the idea of the Monte Carlo method is that you try to define this distribution over the set U, and you start sampling according to the distribution, and then you try to check how many samples of this distribution actually, how many samples out of the samples that you get, how many of them actually lie in the set S. Okay, and the idea is that this is a good estimate of the actual size of S, right? Now the hard part is basically the following, right? So this question of defining, right? How do you do this step? How do you define a distribution over the set, and how do you sample from such a distribution, right? So there could be many different ways in which you can do it. We will see one method today, right? So one DNF counting involves one such Monte Carlo method. We try to define a suitable distribution, right? And later on we will see that a very standard way to do this is to actually define a Markov chain over U whose stationary distribution is the distribution that we want. Right? You try to do this, and then you say that you run this Markov chain. That basically you do this random walk, and you try to prove that the Markov chain converges to U, to the stationary distribution, quickly. Quickly in the sense, say, polynomial time or whatever is the time bound that you want. Right? So this is one of the ways, a very common way in which it is studied. So this is known as the Markov chain Monte Carlo method. So the core idea is that you have a set whose size you want to measure. That set sits in some large universe. You sample from that universe and look at the number of samples that fall in the set S. Right? And the reason this works is the following, right? So if you recall, so you have some quantity that you want to estimate, right? So for instance, the cardinality of S. So in general, it follows from the application of Chernoff bound. So you have a quantity, say mu. Okay, suppose you have a quantity mu that you want to estimate. Okay. For instance, mu could be the fraction of S in U, right? It's equivalent to actually finding the cardinality of set S. Maybe mu is this ratio, right? So say this is the estimate that you want. Now you define, so the way in which you will do it is that you will define an unbiased estimator, right? By the sampling, what you have is an unbiased estimator xi of mu, right? An unbiased estimator is a random variable whose expectation is exactly equal to what you want to actually compute. Right? So sampling from the set would mean you actually look at this unbiased estimator whose expectation is exactly what you want. Now what you do is you take a sufficiently large number of samples, right? You take a sufficiently large number of samples so that its mean is actually close to its expectation, right? The concentration bound, right? So mainly the following statement, right? So this is just a rewording of the Chernoff bound. It says that let x1, x2 up till xm be independent, identically distributed Bernoulli random variables such that expectation of xi is equal to mu, right? Then if m is greater than something like order ln 1 over delta divided by epsilon square mu, if m is of this form, m is equal to order ln 1 over delta epsilon square mu, then the probability that the mean of summation xi, this is actually close to the expectation. The probability that this is far away from the expectation is greater than epsilon mu is less than delta. Okay, so this is just a restatement of the Chernoff bound. We've just written it in a different way. It's the same statement. And this is at the heart of the approximation that we want, right? So what we have is you have a quantity to estimate, which is this mu, right? Say this could be the fraction of elements in the set S out of all the elements in U. And you want to know this, right? This would, so for instance, this would tell you what, if you have a good estimate of this, it will tell you what is the size of S, right? So for say this is what you want. So the Monte Carlo method is basically that you take, you define this random variable whose unbiased estimate is going to be, which is an unbiased estimate of the actual value, and then you take sufficient number of samples, and then you try to estimate it this way, right? Okay. Any questions so far?
But this is same as the midsem first question, right?
It is quite same as it is. It is very similar to the midsem first question. Yes. Right. There you had this many balls of right of n colors, and you wanted to sample. Yeah, that is true. It is very similar to that. So, for instance, if you want delta to be 1 over n, this tells you that you need something like um, ln n over epsilon square or something like that. Right? It's slightly different, but yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, you can phrase it. Yeah, it's the idea is the same. Right? You sample, so that could be thought of as sampling. You need to find the number. So what you do is you sample and see how many of it lies in the actual set that you want. Use that to find the size of the set. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So, so how does so what we are going to get is a so let's look at we are going to apply this Monte Carlo method for DNF counting. Okay, and what we are going to get is a type of a randomized algorithm, what is known as a fully polynomial time randomized approximation scheme. Okay, so this is what is called as an FP-RAS, a fully polynomial time randomized approximation scheme. So it's a randomized algorithm that is going to give an approximate value of a the say the number of satisfying assignments and so on. In general, an FP-RAS is something as follows. So let pi be any computational problem, right? Where you want to compute given, right? So it's a computational problem where if you're given input x, it will give you pi of x. That's the value. Right? So an FP-RAS A is an algorithm that takes as input, right, x and a parameter epsilon, right, greater than 0, okay, such with the and has the following properties. Okay. So it's going to run in time polynomial in the size of x 1 over epsilon, right? And it's going to output a of x such that the probability that a of x and pi of x differ by more than epsilon times pi of x is at most a very small value. Right? So let's say it's 1 over 3. It doesn't really matter. That can also be a parameter if you want, right? If you can, so this can be a parameter. This could be something like a delta, and then this would typically be something like log 1 over delta. Right? It's not very important here, but 1 over 3 is fine. So it's a randomized algorithm. So the reason it's called a fully polynomial time randomized approximation scheme is that it's not just saying that I'll give you an approximation which is good, which is say 1/3 good or 2/3 good or some factor good, but the algorithm actually takes as input the actual input x as well as this number epsilon. It's just some number which is greater than 0, right? And what it's going to give, it's less than 1. It's going to actually output a value which is very close to pi, right? So what this says is the following, right? So it tells you that ax is actually between 1 plus epsilon pi x and 1 minus epsilon pi x. Right? It's actually very close. It's very well, ax very well approximates pi x. It's just off by a very small amount, right? With high probability, with probability 1 over 3. And the running time depends on the error which you want. Right? So if you want a very close error, right? If you want epsilon to be really, really small, then your running time will be large, right? Because the running time is polynomial in 1 over epsilon. So if you want the error to be really tiny, then the algorithm will take more time. But basically, the algorithm's running time depends on the amount of error that you actually require, right? The amount of approximation that you actually require. It's fully polynomial time. It's called fully polynomial time because it's the dependence of the running time on epsilon is polynomial in 1 over epsilon. Right? If there is no dependence, if you can't quantify that dependence, or if that dependence is say exponential, then it's called just a polynomial time randomized approximation scheme. Fully polynomial time means that it is polynomial even in that approximation factor that you want. And rather than calling it an algorithm, it's actually a scheme. It's a set of algorithms, right? I mean, depending on how close you want to approximate, the algorithm is going to do that. So instead of calling it an approximation algorithm, it's actually an approximation scheme, right? It gives you really good guarantees, right? So that is what is an FP-RAS. And what we are actually going to see is an FP-RAS for DNF counting. We're actually, so what we're going to look at right now is this problem pi is sharp DNF, right? And we'll come up with an algorithm that will actually output a number such that that number is just 1 plus epsilon or 1 minus epsilon off from the actual count of satisfying assignments, right? So any questions regarding this notion of an FP-RAS?
So for FP-RAS, do you want like for any epsilon greater than 0 that I can choose? Should the algorithm be work with that epsilon, or is it like some epsilon is fine?
No. So it's basically in your hands. It depends. If you want 1 epsilon, your algorithm will depend. Your running time will depend on the amount of the level of approximation that you require. That's all. The running time will depend on that. Right? For instance, if you want really small epsilon, you want epsilon to be 1 over n to the c or something, n to the 10, then your running time will be n to the 10.
Okay, like so for example, if I set epsilon to be 1 by 2 power n for our counting algorithm, then it will become exact algorithm, right? because
it will become exact algorithm, because the error is one. If the error is only 1 over 2 power n, then you know that you are not off by much. Yeah.
okay.
But then the running time will be a polynomial in 2 power n. Yeah.
Okay.
Is this clear? Any other questions? Okay. So let's start with a very simple approach to the DNF counting problem. Let's look at a very simple Monte Carlo algorithm for DNF counting. So sharp DNF, right? You have a formula phi, which I can write as a disjunction of terms, right? And each Ti is just a bunch of literals, right? So Li1 and Li2 and so on till Lik, right? Okay. And what you want to find is the set S, which is the set of all assignments A, such that pi of A is equal to 1. And you want to find the cardinality of the set. Okay. So in this, the very first thing that you want to try as in the Monte Carlo method is that you can define the universe U to be the set of all strings, right? You can be the set of all strings, all binary strings, right? The set of all assignments, basically, right? And S is basically a subset of U that you want to count. Right? And the first naive algorithm, therefore, would be to sample A uniformly at random from the set of all assignments and check if A is in S, right? And you keep track. So let Y let be the so let me just write it this way. So you basically say you repeat some m times with the following: sample A uniformly at random from U, check if A is in S, and then you have a counter C. If this happens, then you increment a counter, right? So there's some counter that you're incrementing. And after this, you basically output, right? So the idea is that out of m samples, there are C of them. So your hope is that C over m approximate cardinality S over cardinality U, right? And we are interested in this S. So basically what you do is you output the value C divided by m times cardinality U, right? Cardinality U is 2 power n. So this is basically output cardinality C divided by m times 2 power n. Okay. And this is the random variable of interest, right? So we want to look at how well this random variable behaves. Okay. A very straightforward application of the Monte Carlo method. Right? You're interested in a particular set S. You have a universe U that you want to from which this where the set exists. You want to you want to check the size of S. Right? So notice that sampling this step is easy, right? So sampling, you don't have to worry, right? Your set U is defined. Your distribution is basically the uniform distribution over U, and therefore sampling is quite easy, right? So this sampling is basically toss n unbiased bits and biased coins. That is all you have to do with the sampling, right? And this part is also easy, right? So this is basically check if A satisfies phi. That is also easy to do. Checking whether the assignment is in S is also easy to do, because all you have to do is you basically substitute these truth values into your formula and see whether the formula evaluates to true or not. Right? So there are two important parts in the Monte Carlo method where you have to sample from a universe and check. You want to check whether the sampled element is in the set of interest. Both of them are easy to do, right? Because the distribution is very simple, and the set membership is also just verifying satisfiability, right? So now the question is, how good is this algorithm in terms of its approximation, in terms of its guarantees? Right? So let's look at it this way, right? So you have m samples, right? So this is the random variable that we are interested in, right? Let's call this x. What can you say about the expected value of x? What is the expected value of x?
Size of S, right?
Expected value of s is x is basically the size of s, right? So why is that? So let's just write that. Yeah, yes, cardinality. Yes, cardinality. Yeah, Sarthak. Yes, correct. So let's just write that, right? So you can think of it as follows, right? So if you want to look at in the term of the way in which we wrote that Monte Carlo method, you have random variables x1, x2 up till xm, right? Where xi is this Bernoulli random variable that is 1 if ith assignment sampled satisfies phi, right? And it's 0 otherwise. And the expectation of xi is nothing but cardinality s over 2 power n. And x is basically nothing but the way it was defined is 1 over m into summation xi the whole times 2 power n, because this is the quantity c, right? And therefore expectation of x is 2 power n into right m, each of the xi's, right? 1 over m summation expectation of xi, each of the xi's is cardinality s over 2 power n, and therefore this is cardinality s, right? So for this, so when is this a good estimate, right? So is this algorithm good, right? Is this an FP-RAS in the way that you want, right? Right. For instance, let's look at this, this random variable. Right. Let's try to apply the Chernoff bound, right? So what do you want? So you want this quantity. What you have is that you want the probability that y minus cardinality s by 2 power n, the probability that this is greater than epsilon must be less than delta, some delta. I'd say delta is 2/3 for this one, right? And what are the sort of values that you will need for this to be a good um, what value of m should be so that this is a good algorithm, right? It's a good approximation. So how many samples do you need for such a statement to hold, right? So it tells you that if you use the Chernoff bound that was written here, the way in which we wrote it, not here, right here, It depends on epsilon square, and it's 1 over, so say delta is 2 over 3 in this, or 1 over 3 in this, in which case this is a constant. And then you have epsilon square and mu, right? So here, so this is, so instead of, it's not 2/3, it's 1/3. Okay, so delta is fine. But then you want, so for this to hold, the number m, the number of samples that you need is something like 1 over epsilon square mu. What is mu here? Mu is cardinality s time to the 2 power n. S divided by 2 power n. So when it comes here, this is what you need. So this is, you need m for this level of approximation, you need m to be something like order 2 power n divided by epsilon square cardinality s. Right? Only if you have this, then you can say that, your approximation is good enough as compared to the value. It's a good approximation, right? You want m to be something like 2 power n divided by epsilon square cardinality s. So what is wrong with this? What is the problem if you have such a scheme? Why is this not a good algorithm?
I think it's not polytime because size of input is only n.
Size of input is only n, but the problem is that m could be very large. M depends on the cardinality s, right? So for instance, if cardinality s was something like theta 2 power n, right, then this is fine, right? This is fine as long as the number of, if you're satisfying the, so you think of it like this, right? So you have this large universe which is 2 power n, and there is some set sitting inside here. What this tells you is that if the set is large enough, it covers a very large area in the set. Now what you're basically doing is you're throwing darts into the set, right? You're throwing multiple, you're throwing multiple darts, and you want to look at all the darts that lie inside here, and you don't want to consider any of the darts that say fall here. Okay, that's basically what you've done in this algorithm, right? You're just throwing darts, right? And you're hoping, and you're looking at how many darts actually hit the set that you want, right? So if you've played darts actually, right, so the way in which the points are arranged in darts is such that the area, the portion with the smallest area, if you hit, that has the highest points, right? So there's this 20-point thing, which is a very small strip, right? So if you randomly throw a dart, since that area is very small, you're unlikely to hit that. You need to throw many such darts before you can hit that. And the same thing is happening here. You want to find the cardinality of a set S, but then it is possible that your set that you're interested in, right? Right, the set that you're interested in might actually be really tiny. It might be sitting somewhere here. So no matter how you throw the dart, you're unlikely to hit it, right? For instance, if say cardinality S was some polynomial, right? Then if you throw a polynomially many darts, you're unlikely to even see any satisfying assignment. You're not going to hit any element in that set, right? So the problem is that the set, the Monte Carlo algorithm will work very well, right? Provided you're sampling, you're looking at a set whose size is comparable to the universe from which you're sampling, right? Or the distribution, the probability distribution over that universe is such that there is significant weight on the set that you're trying to count, right? If the weight on the set that you're trying to count is very small, you're unlikely to see any element from that set when you're sampling. And then you cannot say anything, any guarantee on what that set size is going to be. Okay. So one crucial thing that you need is that the set that you sample must have a large enough weight inside the set from which you're sampling, right? Or you define the distribution as suitable. And that doesn't happen here, right? So this naive Monte Carlo method of just sampling from the set of all assignments is not going to give you any good algorithm, right? Is this clear? Any clarifications here? Right. So the next idea that the idea that actually gives you an algorithm is a technique that is used in multiple places. It's called, it's an example of what is called importance sampling. Okay. So the idea of importance sampling is that, so there is a set that we are actually interested in, which we want to count here. Right? Now you try to define a probability distribution, a sampling algorithm, which is going to put large weight on this important set. Okay, so there is a set S, which is the important set that we are interested in, right? The set that we want to count in here. Right? So now you define a sampling scheme that puts large enough weight on the set. Okay. And then we can do the same Monte Carlo method. You can use the same analysis and so on, because of the fact that the set has a sufficiently large size, right? Or not sufficiently large size, the weight with which you will sample, the chance of getting an element from that set is much larger. Okay. So it's called importance sampling because there is an important set on which you are trying to put a weight. Okay. In our case, we are going to do an importance sampling, but then we are no longer going to sample from U, right? So in our problem, we have the set U and we have the set S subset of U, right? These are the two sets of interest for us, and we are interested in cardinality S. What we will do is, we will, instead of this, we'll go to a different universe U prime and a different set S prime in this universe, okay, such that we'll try to compute this ratio. Okay. And what we'll show is that the way in which we are going to define these sets and the sampling scheme is such that this is going to be large, right? So basically, the set of interest that set of our interest, this S prime, is the important set, and the scheme will be such that there will be sufficient weight on this set when you're sampling from U prime. Furthermore, what we will show is that cardinality of S prime will be equal to cardinality of S. Okay. So instead of looking at U, which is a set of all assignments, and S, which is a set of satisfying assignments, we will look at a related set U prime and a set S prime in U prime, such and define this sampling scheme, which will put a lot of weight on S prime, right? So that you need fewer samples to actually estimate the size of S prime. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, so let's see this importance sampling and how it is applied for DNF counting. So so what do we have? So we have this formula phi. Right? So let's look at the actual FP RAS for sharp DNF. So you have a formula phi, which is T1 or T2 or Tm, right? Where you can say Ti is conjunction of literals. Correct? And we are interested in the set S, right? S is the set of satisfying assignments. Okay. So now, instead of sampling from the set of all assignments and then trying to sample S, let's look at a slightly different set. Okay. So suppose that so let Ti have Ki literals in it, okay, for each I. Okay. And so how is Ti? Ti will look like L1, L L1 or L2 or LKI, right? How many satisfying assignments are there for TI? Okay, so let SI be the set of all assignments A such that it satisfies TI. What can you say about cardinality SI? What is the size of SI? It's a set of all assignments that satisfy TI alone. Not alone, TI. It satisfies TI. How many assignments are there? Oh, sorry. Let me just rewrite this. It's not disjunction, these are conjunctions. What is the cardinality of SI? Assume that TI is satisfiable for now. Okay, so that literal and its complement is not present. Okay? So suppose it is satisfiable. Suppose TI is satisfiable. How many satisfying assignments are there? Yeah, Sarthak, I think you're saying something.
One, I mean,
No. So satisfying assignment is a assignment that assigns truth values to all the variables,
okay.
right? So what you're saying is one is because it's a conjunction of literal, so there is only one way in which you can satisfy it. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was.
So that is correct. So then, how many satisfying assignments are there? So an assignment is you have to set values to all the variables. So it must set a fixed set of values to the variables that appear in TI. What about the remaining variables?
Okay. Two to the other,
Yeah. So the
whatever.
remaining, exactly, right? So the remaining variables you can set whichever value you want. It will still satisfy the TI, right? So the only way in which you can satisfy TI is if you set L1 to be 1, L2 to be 1, and so on till LKI to be 1. That's the only way in which you will satisfy. The remaining literals you can set in whichever way you variables you can set in whichever way you want. That will not affect the satisfiability of TI. So the cardinality of SI is 2 power n minus Ki. Right? Okay. And now, so with this, what we'll do is we will define a set U. Okay, so this is different from the U that we saw. This is a set of all I comma A such that I is between 1 and M, and A is a satisfying assignment of the class SI, of the term SI, of the term TI. Right? So this basically is telling you that it's telling you that Ti of A is equal to 1. Okay. So for each term, you look at the assignments that satisfy that term and you collect everything. Right? So notice that the first thing is that the same assignment can satisfy more than one terms. Right? The same assignment can satisfy more than one terms. Right? Because because you don't care how you're setting the remaining, you take one assignment that might satisfy term T1, T2, and so on, T3, and multiple of them. Right? So the cardinality U is basically somehow overcounting, right? U has the same assignment can appear in multiple times for each of the terms that assignment satisfies. Right? You can think of this as some kind of a table, right? So let me draw this table here, where here you have the assignments. Okay, call it A1 or A1 bar, A2 bar, and so on. A2 power n bar. Right. So these are the assignments, and these are the terms. Okay, T1, T2 until Tn. What you're saying is that you will put a 1 if A1 satisfies T1. So it could be possible that A1 bar also satisfies T2. It might not satisfy some of this. It might satisfy TM and so on, right? So you have this table. So the same assignment, right? This assignment, it might satisfy because it is satisfying more than at least one term. That's what it means. Okay. Now, what can you say about the cardinality of U? How large is U? So, I mean, you can't give a value. So, it's basically summation cardinality SI. Right? This is what I mean. Right? So, you take the first term, look at all the assignments. So for each term, so right, you're counting. For this one, you look at all the ones. The number of ones here, right? This number of ones is actually cardinality SI. So, you count the number of ones here, you count the number of ones in the second row, column, third column, and so on. Right? Okay. Is this okay? So now what you're going to do is we are actually going to sample from this universe here. Okay. We're going to sample from this universe. So the set of interest for us is actually the following. So the actual set S that we are interested in, right? So if you look at, if you think about it, right? The cardinality of S is equal to the union of all the SIs. Cardinality of the union of all the SIs, right? Right, because each assignment might satisfy more than one of the terms. So you take the union of SIs, the cardinality of that is the cardinality that we are interested in. Okay. So if this is the universe, we need to actually compute, a set S prime, okay, such that cardinality of S is going to be cardinality of S prime, right? And the ratio of S prime to cardinality U is large. Right? This is what we will need to apply the Monte Carlo method. Right? You're going to sample from U, and then you're going to check whether it lies in a certain set S prime, okay, whose fraction of points in S prime in U is very large, and the size of this S prime is actually equal to the size of the satisfying assignments. Once we have that, we can just apply the Monte Carlo algorithm. Right? Provided we know how to sample from U, we need to sample uniformly from U, which is not yet clear. Right? So the problems here is that you need to find the set S prime which has a large enough cardinality in U. Secondly, you need to be able to check membership in S prime very easily. And finally, you should be able to sample from U, uniformly from U, in an easy way. Right? So these three things are needed for the FPRAS, for the Monte Carlo method to apply. And since we are out of time, we will see how this can be done in the next lecture. We'll do it on Wednesday. Okay. And so we'll see how this sampling, how to construct the space and how to sample from it, and therefore use that to find the number of satisfying assignments. And then we'll actually see that there is a close connection between sampling and counting. Okay. And that is what we will explore after that. Okay. So that we will do on Wednesday. We will stop for now. Okay, and we will continue on Wednesday. Yeah. Any questions regarding what we did today? Okay, so if there are no more questions, then I think we will stop now.